All right, what happened to JuJu Smith-Schuster?
It may be hard to believe, but JuJu Smith-Schuster's barely 27 years old. But despite his youth and household name, he hasn't had a season over 1,000 yards in 5 years. While some of his peers are in, he hasn't had a season over
2017, 900, 1500, 500, 800, 100. Oh, he didn't play that much. 933, 260? What the fuck? How do you only get 260? Because of Mac Jones?
1,000 yards in 5 years. While some of his peers are in their prime putting up big numbers, Smith-Schuster feels like an afterthought at this point. So what happened to JuJu, and how did we get here? Before the name JuJu Smith-Schuster, he was known as John Smith. The name JuJu was given to him by his aunt, and right after turning 18, he added Schuster to his last name as a tribute to his stepfather. JuJu was a highly touted football player since playing in his youth, and even caught the eye of Snoop Dogg when playing in his football league. Snoop Dogg even gave JuJu the nickname Sports Center for his highlight plays that he would frequently make. Growing up in California, it made sense for JuJu to stay local, and although he almost attended Oregon, he decided to join Steve Sarkisian at USC. Smith-Schuster played 40 games in 3 seasons at USC, and had a monster sophomore season with over 1,400 yards and 10 touchdowns. He was first team All-Pac-12 in 2015, and his 1,454 receiving yards that year were the 3rd most in the school's history. Number 1 is actually former Jaguars wide receiver Marquise Lee. In January of 2017, JuJu declared for the NFL draft, and was actually the youngest player in his entire class. He was actually the 5th youngest player to ever play in an NFL game when he made his debut. Hence why him being 27 feels so young, considering he's been around for what feels like a long time. Entering the 2017 draft, JuJu was ranked
Wait, he went to the league when he was 20?
as Sports Illustrated's 4th ranked wide receiver in the class, behind names like Corey Davis, John Ross, and Mike Williams, 2 of which have basically already retired. He had to wait until day 2, but Smith-Schuster heard his name called 62nd overall by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And funny enough, 7 picks later, the Rams took fellow wide receiver Cooper Kupp. But at first, it looked like Pittsburgh struck gold, as the youngest player in the league got off to a really good start. JuJu came into the 2017 season as a backup wide receiver behind Antonio Brown, Martavis Bryant, and Eli Rogers. By the end of the year though, JuJu was 4th on the team in targets and 3rd among wide receivers. Though he only saw 79 targets, he was very efficient. He by far had the highest catch percentage among Steelers wide receivers, as JuJu caught 73.4% of his passes. The next closest was Darius Hayward-Bay, who caught 66.7% of his passes. Antonio Brown was at 62%. He quickly became a favorite target for Ben Roethlisberger, and by season's end, he was 2nd on the team in yards, only trailing AB, who was still in his prime and a top wide receiver in the league at that point. In Week 8 at Detroit, JuJu had his breakout performance with 193 receiving yards and a touchdown. He did this as a 20-year-old and was the 2nd youngest player in NFL history to have a 100-yard receiving game. Number 1 was Aaron Hernandez, and he only had 101. JuJu had 193. His 97-yard reception that week was the longest catch in Steelers history, and the longest catch in the NFL during the 2017 season. He also became the first player in NFL history to score 5 touchdowns before his 21st birthday. He did miss 2 games that rookie year, one due to injury, and the other was the vicious blindside block on Vontaze Burfict, which of course resulted in a suspension. And while most Steelers fans love that, it potentially costed him a shot at 1,000 yards during his rookie year. His 917 yards is still a Steelers record for rookies. For the Steelers, however, a year that had so much promise.
The only thing that's close for 2010's wide receivers is prime Julio versus prime AB. And I'll take Julio.
Ended in sadness in a divisional round loss to the Jaguars. JuJu did catch a touchdown that game,
just had
but it was the literal
swear.
definition of garbage time
Like
points. In the following offseason, Martavis Bryant was traded to the Raiders, opening up more playing time for JuJu entering his 2nd year. And in a spot where some players would not live up to the hype, JuJu took his game to another level in 2018. He started off with 3 straight 100-yard games, and his impressive production did not stop. It took JuJu 21 games
problem Julio had was getting in the end zone.
Games to reach 1,500 receiving yards for his career, which was the fewest amount of games it took any Steelers wide receiver to reach that mark. In Week 11 at Denver, having just come off a 100-yard game the week prior, JuJu not only had his second career game of over 180 yards, but he did something that no other player has done before. JuJu, who we mentioned scored a 97-yard touchdown the season prior, did the same thing once again, making him one of 3 players in NFL history with multiple 97-yard or more touchdowns. He had his first career multiple touchdown game in Week 14 at Oakland, and the first touchdown grab in that game was an absolute beauty. That ball literally looked uncatchable at first, and the official even called him out of bounds at first. JuJu finished 2018 with an incredible stat line: 111 catches, 1,426 yards, and 7 touchdowns. JuJu is still the youngest player in Steelers history to have a 1,000-yard season. A few years later, George Pickens did this as a 22-year-old as well, but JuJu was still younger by about 8 months. Although his individual numbers were spectacular, it was JuJu who potentially fumbled away the Steelers season in 2018, depending on who you ask. In a must-win Week 16, JuJu had a crucial fumble down 3 right on the cusp of field goal range in the final minute. A loss here and some things not breaking their way the final week of the season left the Steelers out of the playoffs. It was after this season that Antonio Brown got traded to Oakland, and he did not go out peacefully. After losing out on the team MVP in 2018 to JuJu, it definitely enraged AB. And AB on social media let all of us know who he thought was the Steelers MVP in 2018. And while I get his point, it's crazy that he took it this personally. And after all, the MVP was voted on by Steelers players, not the organization. Year 3 for JuJu without AB was going to be the most difficult yet. He always benefited from not being a defense's center of attention, but now the spotlight was on him with Antonio Brown departed. The year started off pretty well, but not as dominant as 2018. Through 8 weeks, JuJu was on pace for over 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns, but here was the issue. Ben Roethlisberger sustained a season-ending elbow injury in the middle of Week 2. Not only did JuJu have to absorb the responsibility of being the wide receiver 1, but he now had to catch passes from Mason Rudolph and Devlin Hodges. The last obstacle he faced in 2019 was suffering a bad hit in Week 11 that sidelined him for 4 weeks. JuJu had been very durable during his first 2.5 seasons in the NFL, but a concussion and a knee sprain kept him out for a month. He came back the final 2 games that year and did just about nothing, finishing the 2019 season with a disappointing stat line. Heading into 2020, the Steelers knew they had something with JuJu and Deontay Johnson, but they still wanted to add another piece. Pittsburgh selected Chase Claypool in the 2nd round, giving them 3 really good wide receivers for an aging Ben Roethlisberger coming off elbow surgery. JuJu had a nice Week 1 at the Giants, 69 yards and a pair of touchdowns to be exact. While JuJu did stay healthy,
I ain't like Steelers and wide receivers
that season, crazy, he didn't put up numbers he was accustomed to. He did have a 4-week stretch averaging 8 catches and 76 yards per game, but aside from that, he was pretty underwhelming. Overall, he had 97 grabs, 831 yards, and 9 touchdowns on the year. And while this was a respectable season, it's still nowhere near his last full season when he was healthy, putting up over 1,400 yards. And while he was still a productive receiver, his image was starting to take a hit. There was the whole TikTok incident where JuJu danced on the Bengals logo and later got rocked by Von Bell, and JuJu even got mocked for having more TikToks posted than receiving yards in a game during the 2020 season. He did seem to learn his lesson and apologize for being a distraction, but it didn't mean that some players just forgot about this. He was even called TikTok boy by AJ Brown 3 years later. After an 11-0 start that year, the Steelers stumbled into the playoffs at 12-5, and just
damn, they won like 17 in a row. What the fuck is this? They were what? Oh, 11-0. They're 12-4. How did they stumble into the playoffs?
Like the way they were playing the past month, their playoff game went terribly. Pittsburgh got down 28-0, eventually coming back to lose 48-37. But JuJu, who did not even have a 100-yard game that year, put up 13 catches, 157 yards, and a touchdown in the playoff loss. Once again, mostly in garbage time, but it still looks good on the resume. In the 2021 offseason, JuJu was set to be a free agent. Reports came out that he was pursued by the Ravens, the Eagles, the Jets, and the Chiefs. Chiefs. But JuJu remained loyal to the Steelers and apparently came back on a discount. At still just 24 years old, JuJu signed a 1-year deal worth $8 million, turning down some better offers from other teams. The 1-year deal was a bit surprising, but maybe the offers were not there, especially with the cap restraints coming off the COVID season. 2021 would end up being the most disappointing season of JuJu's career. He got off to a very underwhelming start, averaging just 32 yards per game the first quarter of the season. Week 5, though, would end up being his last game of the season as he suffered a shoulder injury versus Denver. Walking off the field in Week 5 would end up being his final game in a Steelers uniform. He finished that season with 15 catches and 129 yards in roughly 4.5 games. In the 2022 offseason, at the age of 25, JuJu was hitting the open market again, and this time the assumption was it would be for a multi-year deal. But once again, it was a 1-year deal, this time with Kansas City. And to make it even more puzzling, he signed a 1-year deal worth $10.75 million, but his base salary was only $3.25 million. This meant that over $7 million of his $10.75 million was incentive-based. Talk about betting on yourself. So why couldn't JuJu get a long-term contract, you may ask? Well, one of the reasons was NFL GMs viewed his position as pretty replaceable. A slot receiver in his mid-20s who has been declining in explosiveness and just missed over half the season the year prior. But what I think the main reason finding an explosiveness and just missed over half the season the year prior. But what I think the main reason are the knee injuries he suffered in 2019 and 2020, which made teams feel uneasy about making a long-term commitment to JuJu. It was something he would have to manage, but it was evident to GMs around the league that JuJu was not the same level of game changer that he was his first 2 years in the NFL. In 2022, JuJu played in all but one game due to a concussion and put up a pretty similar stat line to his 2020 season. He was second on the team in targets, well behind Travis Kelce, but JuJu caught 78 balls for over 900 yards and 3 touchdowns. In the playoffs, he did not do anything.
But yeah, he does, because 2022-2023 season he won.
Too impactful the first couple games, but in the Super Bowl, he had 7 catches and drew a 3rd down pass interference, which basically iced the game. Winning the Super Bowl that year and playing over half the snaps in the Super Bowl gave JuJu another $1 million in incentives. By season's end, he earned $8.5 million of his $10.75 million contract. So to his credit, he did a good job hitting those incentives. In 2023's free agency, JuJu hit the market as a 26-year-old coming off a Super Bowl winning season and playing a pretty big role in that too. Rather than returning to KC, JuJu finally got himself a multi-year deal, inking a 3-year, $25 million deal with the New England Patriots. Other than the length of the contract, it's still a puzzling move till this day. JuJu emphasized he always wanted to play for Bill Belichick, and the two had mutual respect for each other based on Bill Belichick double-teaming JuJu during their matchups when he was a Steeler. But leaving Mahomes and Andy Reid was definitely a tough thing to do. Even for the Patriots, they could have just re-signed Jacoby Myers to play the same role. I complained about this in September, but I digress. Before the year even started, there was already some drama about JuJu and his knee issues. NFL reporter Albert Breer literally went on camera and said JuJu Smith-Schuster's knee is a mess and could explode at any point. This was an odd way of wording it, and it definitely made headlines, but JuJu himself had to shoot this down, saying he did not think it was true and his knee was getting stronger every day. The concerns made sense. After all, JuJu admitted he could not walk for a few days after the AFC Championship the year prior, and he had an off-season knee surgery to clean up some things, whatever that means. Anyway, to put it bluntly, it was a miserable season in New England, not just for JuJu, but for everyone. JuJu played in 11 of 17 games, missing time with a concussion, an ankle injury, and some coaches' DNPs. Aside from a 90-yard game at Pittsburgh, the team that drafted him, JuJu's highest receiving total in a game last year was 51 yards. Overall, he had 260 yards and just 1 touchdown on the season. And the reason he joined the Pats, which was Bill Belichick, was let go after his first year there. Today, JuJu is just 27 years old, but the days of him being one of the better wide receivers in the game are long gone. And you don't have to look at fancy advanced metrics or stats to see this. The eye test will tell you that the explosiveness he once possessed his first 2 years is long gone. I mean, he literally had back-to-back 97-yard yard touchdowns in his first 2 years. His longest reception since 2019 is 53 yards. He's just not what he used to be. And it's not even just that, I do think he benefited largely from playing across one of the league's best wide receivers in his first 2 years. It's been a roller coaster of a career through 7 NFL seasons for JuJu. After 2018, he looked like he would be a top 10 wide receiver for a long time, but it never happened. Then it was the TikTok boy phase in 2020. Then it was the Super Bowl year in KC where he put up his best numbers in 4 years. And now he's just this wide receiver who feels much older than he is, whose knee is a ticking time bomb apparently. This sort of reminds me of the Todd Gurley situation, but at least JuJu's still in the NFL. Gurley had a few seasons of being one of the, if not the best, running backs in the entire NFL. But by the age of 26, he was out of the NFL due to his knees. It's kind of sad how JuJu's career has transpired in recent years, but at least for him, he's under contract for 2 more years and does not turn 30 for over 2 more years. We'll see if he can stay healthy and maybe have a late career resurgence in the slot, just like Larry Fitzgerald did in the mid-2010s. Although comparing someone to Larry is pretty foolish, but you never know. But that'll do it for this video. Of course, leave a like and subscribe if you did for more NFL content, and I'll talk to you guys next time.
That was a good video. So you're just still on the Pats, or I'm tripping? I think I got traded.
At 25 years old.
I thought he got traded, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, you got traded? Where? What team? Oh, he's still on the Pats? Damn. Good fucking luck. Hopefully he drafted Jake May.